First of all, I'm so mad I never got to take one of your classes, like while I was at Pitt, because you're just a brilliant, and I'm so glad that you're sitting down with us. I know a little bit in pre-production you were talking about like a part of this, SCBT and training is to rethink stereotyping. And a lot of times people associate stereotyping with negative stereotypes and fear and boundaries. But you said even the way we approach stereotypes need to change.
Indeed.
So can you just expound upon that a little bit more?
Absolutely. And so I had mentioned, one of the reflections from Audre Lorde that I key in on is what it means to not embrace the master's tools, right, when it comes to the world we want to live in. And she talks about without community, there's no liberation, so that we have to be effective in engaging across our differences, which means we have to move away from the things that actually make it difficult for us to engage across differences. Stereotypes are one of the tools in the master's house because they put us in a position to make judgments about people that we don't even know, right? And it takes away from that sort of distinct human qualities and individuality that we have by putting people into this sort of monolithic category, right? And so I always tell folks, when you hear white folks making stereotypes about black folks, we're like quick to be like, whoa, that's terrible. And I tell folks of color, when you do the same thing, you're just using the same tool, right? Now, in your mind, you might say it's justified because, well, they do it to us. But I'm like, does it work towards the goal of liberation, right? And so when you think about liberation, or I should say when you think about how we're socialized, again, we're often socialized around being fearful of our differences, ignorant of our differences, confused about our differences, or insecure about our differences, right? To the extent that we want to create a society in which we're all liberated, right, that we have to move away from some of those tools, right? And so when we use stereotypes, that's often rooted in ignorance because, again, we're talking about people in ways that are simply not accurate, right? For all the times we might say something, again, whether it's joking or general about white folks, we know plenty of white folks that don't fit the category. So why do we continue to utilize those stereotypes? Because, again, we wouldn't want the reverse to happen, right? And so I'm mindful of the fact that those sort of generalized assumptions keep our mind from not fully seeing each other's humanity, right? We got to get past the point where we only see an aspect of identity and then make those assumptions, right? Because too often those assumptions put us in a position not to act out in our sort of best interest when it comes to the world we want to live in. So when we think about liberation, right, that we have to have different tools. And so Bobby Harrow, if you look this up, The Cycle of Liberation, it's a really great piece that helps us understand, well, how do you foster a society in which we thrive? She talks about having different core components, right? And so instead of fear, ignorance, confusion, and security, she talks about elevating love, self-esteem, support, community, spirituality, the things that when we lead with that, right, and we connect with others, we find ourselves growing in much more meaningful ways. So for me, that's what I talk about when I say, we got to be mindful of these tools that, again, might seem innocuous, but really work toward maintaining systems of oppression.
I'm starting to see that, my bad, just a quick comment, how I'm starting to see how your approach to people aligns with your approach to racism. Because it's like, if we're going to understand the complexity of racism, then at the same time, we have to take the time to understand the complexity of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big time. And again, to be able to see each other for our humanity, right? Because, again, we've been so socialized to put ourselves in buckets and then to judge each other based on the buckets, right? Whether it's race or gender, socioeconomic status, geographic background, so on and so forth. We got to get past that. Again, those are tools of the masters. Whether we recognize it or not, those tools will never lead us towards liberation, right? And so, again, we got to be mindful of the ways in which we engage, in which, again, often rooted in implicit behavior because we don't know how it's working towards those systems to say, how does this actually benefit us, right? Where is the evidence that, engaging, whether it's in stereotypes, microaggressions, show us the evidence that it's actually working towards the world in which we can all thrive. And if it's not, we got to be okay with saying, maybe we don't need this tool anymore. Maybe we need something else.